Hello everybody, welcome back to the I Review Your Pokemon series. In this episode, we are going over this Eevee, sent in another by Solrion. Now, typically speaking, I will say this general question is just which evolution, like if I had to summarize it, it's which evolution should I pick? And while I'm going to generally try to avoid those sorts of questions with this series just because I feel like discussing which evolution, a lot of the concepts that I'm going to discuss throughout them are going to be very similar when discussing evolutions as a whole, because I think the general concepts of which evolution should I pick is somewhat understandable, and I covered pretty well in my evolutions deep dive video. So if you want to check that video, I'll link it in the description of this one. But I think there's a bit more interesting stuff going on, specifically with the timing of the question being sent in by Solrion, because where their account's at and the nature of what is happening in the Pokemon Sleep world actually makes an impact, I feel, on what their decisions should be. So, what is Solrion's question? Well, they're basically saying I'm a new player. I just got this Eevee. My best bonds right now are... Give me 1 minute, I have the wrong thing open. All of these mons. they described all of them to me, and I put them all into Rain on X just to show them off. You can look over them if you want. My main goal is to get a really good Cyndaquil, since he's my favorite Pokemon. Fair enough, Typhlosion's awesome. But anyway, with that in mind, and the Mons that I already have, what should I do with this Eevee? I'm tempted to evolve him into an Espeon, but what is your recommendation? Still don't have a healer on the team, and I'm hoping to find a Pawmi in the triple-type event. Now that is why I think there is a bit of a significance to the timing of things. Now, notably, Solrion's also a Premium Pass player, so that is notable. They do have access to sub-skill and main skill seeds. So I think that a lot of these are pretty decent Pokemon, but overall you can get a vibe here. They're a pretty new player. They've been playing for about 4 weeks. I'd say right now one of the biggest priorities for you is early game healer. Healer as a whole. One of the most impactful things you can do for your account is getting yourself a healer. Healers are very, very powerful. The most powerful type of Pokemon that exists in this game. So that would lead me to believe that if you have a really good Eevee, like this one, then ideally the mindset would be make it a Sylveon, because you already caught it, you don't have to hunt Igglybuff, you don't have to hunt the Pawmi. Now, I generally, for new players, advise against the Pawmi hunt, just because it's kind of a bait option. Pawmi is better than Sylveon, it is better than Wigglytuff. It's kind of a middle ground between Gardevoir and the early game options. But Pawmi looks like an early game option because it is at Greengrass Isle, but the spawn pool there is so watered down, you're rarely ever going to see it. And the next island that it's available at, where you can genuinely, properly hunt it, is at Snowdrop Tundra, which is late enough. It used to be the latest game area at one point, long ago. So it's a fairly late game area, even if it's not the latest game anymore. So it's not easy to get there for a new game player, and I'd hope that you'd have some sort of healer figured out before you get to Snowdrop. Would be the ideal situation. But you have this Eevee that could be a healer, but there's an event coming up that's boosting Pawmi spawns. Now, it's not going to be boosting them a ton. It is a greater appearance rate, but there's so many things that are boosted that realistically you still might not encounter as many Pawmi as you think you will encounter. But there's more to go into that, and I want to circle back to that later. But first, let's just kind of discuss, if you're not going to go the Sylveon route, what is the best way? And I evaluated it at both level 30 and level 50. Now, when it comes to which evolution, I think the general advice, and what I gave in my my evolution guide video, is that you don't necessarily choose evolutions even based off of your box necessarily. You don't necessarily choose it based off of... Well, you choose a little bit based off your box, but it's not necessarily about the stats on the Eevee. Stats play a little bit of a role for certain ones, but overall, you're mostly looking for which role do you need to fill. And as of right now, you don't really have any roles filled. Like, you have a tomato farmer, you have some Berrymons, electric Berrymons, you have a Totodile that's alright. As for what the evolutions cover, you don't necessarily have them filled. Now, I would say being a premium player, I think Flareon and Glaceon have a bit less value. I would never consider Leafeon in any serious capacity, just because it's pretty much strictly outclassed by Sylveon or by Gardevoir eventually later on, where it's way, way outclassed. So I wouldn't really recommend Leafeon. I probably wouldn't lean towards Flareon or Glaceon unless you're running into pot size capacity issues. And even then, that'll probably get resolved as you keep playing the game and you get that to a bigger pot size. And you use your ingredient mons less and... Well, not necessarily use them less and less, but... These two are generally best used for making bigger meals, and if you're a Premium Pass player, you're likely going to be using good camp tickets on the weeks where it matters most, which means the weeks you'll actually be able to get to use them are pretty few and far between. There will be a few event weeks where you'll have big meals that you want to be making that you won't be able to run a good camp ticket, but generally speaking, these ones are a bit more niche than I'd say the other ones. They're great for a free-to-play player who can't otherwise access the top meals. But if you're premium, then these aren't as vital. And even if they are vital, I'd say they're really more late game when strong meals really come online. So you don't necessarily need one of these at this point. Jolteon is the one that I would say sub-skills really do matter for. It really does like having Berry Fighting S. If you watch my video about Berry Fighting S Deep Dive and which Pokemon benefit the most from it, this is my chart that has all the Pokemon in the game. All the non-berry specialist Pokemon in the game, and it shows how much they gain by having Berry Fighting S. Now, Sceptile's up there just kind of in a league of his own, but if you ignore Sceptile, specifically by my index, which are based off the Pokemon stats, this is not my opinion, these are numbers that come from the Pokemon stats. The Pokemon that gains the most from Berry Fighting S is Jolteon, so it really, really likes that have that skill. That specific sub-skill. So I wouldn't recommend Jolteon, probably wouldn't recommend Flareon or Glaceon, wouldn't recommend Leafeon. I'd never recommend Umbreon, it's just kind of fundamentally flawed. Same sort of thing as Leafeon, honestly. So then the real ones that you'd be considering would be Espeon, Sylveon, or Vaporeon. And that's kind of how I would have process eliminated that for you. Vaporeon can have a lot of strength early game, especially. It's one that kind of, the value that you get out of it kind of dilutes over time as you focus more stronger meals. Then having just random ingredients becomes less and less valuable. So I would say consider that if you go the Vaporeon route. It's really, Espeon is one that can do really well straight into the mid-late game where a lot of us are right now. I still use an Espeon. Sylveon, healer. Healers are valuable. The real question is, do you go for this healer, or do you make it an Espeon, or do you make it a Vaporeon if you want to get what Vaporeon can get? And I'd say those are your three real serious considerations here. But the biggest one is going to be primarily, I think, Sylveon. Oh, and also, for comparison to level 50, it does pretty well at level 50 as well. That's where it really comes online. And this is another thing that holds this one back. It's got an XP gains down nature. I don't know if you have the candy to get it to level 50 anytime soon, but it really isn't a great option until you get it to level 50, and that could be pretty far away. I know that when I was starting out the game and on the sleepers, it took me a while to get Pokemon to level 50, longer than I thought it would. So it might be a bit of an invest, especially with an XP gains down nature, but then again, Eevee's pretty common. Eevee candies are pretty common. You might be able to get it there. I have a level 50 Leafeon on my sleepers account, so it is possible. But anyway, healers. Here's the real question, because Pawmot is a better healer than Sylveon at its base. And we do have an event where it's boosted, so you may be able to genuinely actually pull off a hunt for Pawmot coming up here soon. But there's something that's very difficult to consider, and that is its evolution requirement. Both Sylveon and Pawmot have a 150 hours slept with evolution requirement. That is a long time. People don't realize this when they're going into it until they've already completed the investment for them, the sleep time investment. But 150 hours, even if you sleep 10 hours a night, which is longer than most people sleep for. It's longer than I usually sleep for. And it's longer than I feel like most people log in the day on the game. If that is how much you log, that'll still take you 15 nights of sleep. That is more than 2 weeks. As of the time that this video is releasing, you have about 2 weeks before the Legendary Beast event. So even if you catch the perfect Pawmi, unless you catch it as a Pawmot, which I doubt you're going to be able to do at this point, it is not going to be a Pawmot by the time the Legendary Beast event rolls around. Now, you could be using it in the midst of the event to build those sleep hours, and then get it halfway through the event or a quarter of the way through the event. But it's not going to be a Pawmot by that point, so you're going to be working with a Pawmo. But Pawmot, long term, it wouldn't take much to get one that's better than the Sylveon. You can see here I made the quick comparison without the boosts. In order to get the Pawmot to produce the same amount of procs per day, at level 30, it would really just need a little bit of speed, a help speed S and a speed up nature. That's really not very difficult to catch. Most Pawmots probably do better than this. And at level 50, it really, and this is to be comparable, it's technically slightly worse, but it's such a small amount, it may as well be negligible. At level 50, it just takes some extra speed, speed M, speed S, and a skill trigger up, main skill, or sub-skill, skill trigger M, to make comparable number of procs at level 50. So, the species difference there is significant enough that you may actually catch a decent one that you could reasonably use. I could see this being a possibility. And for comparison's sake, I just threw in the Rarity. Take a look at what are your odds of catching a better Sylveon. Well, for level 50, the odds are roughly 1 in 121, 122-ish at level 50. Before that point, it's like 1 in 10. But realistically, this is more what you're looking at is the level 50. So, it's more the question of can you go the Sylveon route at all? And it's, like I said, 1 in 121. That's probably going to be the best one you're going to get. Other than helping bonus can throw that off, I made this help bonus stack set to 0. If you know what that means, basically, helping bonus would make these odds less if you value helping bonus pretty highly. But anyway, that's about the odds that it came up for the raw number of procs. This Pawmot that had just the speed and the speed up nature, 1 in 15 Pawmots, roughly, are going to outproduce the Sylveon at level 30. And for level 50, the same sub-skills that I put in for the other guy, roughly 1 in 140. Now, this is a bit more rare to see. It's actually more difficult to encounter than the Sylveon, which is interesting as far as rarity discussions go. But at level 50 and beyond, it's like 1 in 140 Pawmots. So that's going to be pretty difficult to encounter, pretty difficult to hunt for. But it's something that you might be able to encounter. Now, the real interesting discussion, though, I feel like comes about with Pawmo, because we do have this event popping up here, and while these Pawmos do not compete, you have to consider that during the Legendary event, we're having a boost, an event boost, that is going to make them stronger. If the game would actually process that. There we go, there we go. In order to get comparable sub-skills on a Pawmo, it's still going to take more than what it took for the Pawmot, though. And I just ran these guys through for their expected main skill count with the boosts and everything. Roughly 1 in 73 Pawmies at level 30 are going to outproduce your Sylveon at 30. And 1 in 6,000 are going to outproduce it at level 50. Now, I don't think you're getting it to level 50, so really the level 30 comparison is the one that's more important and more crucial to you at this point. But still, 1 in 73, that's not good odds. I'll be honest with you, that is not the greatest of odds. But it's something that, if you catch a couple Pawmies during the event, you may stumble into it. And if you happen to stumble into it, and it's better than the Sylveon now, I'm telling you, it's probably going to be better than it as a Pawmot one day when it gets to that point. But Sylveon also has a 150-hour sleep hour requirement to evolve it. So my advice, and here's my genuine advice, and I'm gonna zoom in into just the camera for this. My advice here is to start sleeping with the Eevee if you haven't already. Get it to 150 hours so that you are ready to take it to level 50, or that you're able to fully evolve it, potentially take it to level 50 if you can, and main skill seed it so that it's ready for the event. But Triple Type Week is starting right now. As of the time that this video is going out, it's basically right now is when it's starting, at least in my time zone. Maybe it's already been, depending upon what time zone you're in, Solrion. But hunt that Pawmi. If you stumble into it, awesome. Start sleeping with it ASAP to get as many sleep hours as you possibly can, so that you're only dealing with a Pawmo for as little amount of time as you can during the actual event. But that 150 sleep hours is a big requirement, and it's something that is not very easy to think about, because you think, oh, I'll just evolve it by then. You can't. It's going to be a Pommo by the time that it comes around, and you're going to be stuck with a Pommo for at least, like, maybe a week into the event. It might be only a couple days if you catch the Pommy earlier on in the week, but I hope that RNG is in your favor, and that all works out. But just as a backup, sleep with it in case it becomes a Sylveon. Even if it doesn't, and you want it to become an Espeon, you still need those sleep hours. So I'd still advise sleeping with it to get it to that 150 hours so that you can evolve it into an Espeon eventually when you need it. But anyway, that is about it for today's video. So thank you, Solrion, for sending in this Eevee with the interesting question. If you two also have an interesting question that you've been dying to ask, feel free to submit it either via the hashtag YouTube Rate My Mon or YouTube Review My Mon channel in the Discord, or via the Google form that is linked in the description of every one of these videos. Thank you all for watching. If you want to join the Discord, feel free to click the link that is in the description. Come join us, hang out, talk about all things Pokemon Sleep and the like. A huge thank you to all of my channel members. It really means a lot to me that you guys want to show your support financially, despite there being no paid rewards for members. If you too want to become a channel member, then feel free to click the join button down below. And as always, I thank you all for watching and hope that you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.